Hello, my name is Matthew, and I've been reading some short stories by H.P. Lovecraft this past week. It's a writer that I've never read before. My girlfriend recommended that we read them together. If you're new to my channel, my girlfriend lives in Spain, and I live on the east coast of the States, and so um, aside from talking every day and things like that, as a pastime, we pick um, writers or novels or short stories that we can read together and talk about, and we'll alternate having suggestions. And she recommended that maybe we read some H.P. Lovecraft. I've never read him before, and I thought that was a great idea. He has a lot of name recognition. Of course, I've heard the name, and without ever having read him, uh, it does evoke a certain idea, like a certain type of writing. I think about maybe like horror or supernatural, fantastical kind of stories, but I didn't know. And we read a handful. I thought I would talk about just one. Some of the ones that we had read, What the Moon Brings, which is it's like a supernatural sketch of what a garden looks like in the moonlight compared to the daylight. The Other Gods, which maybe just think that he was on drugs. It felt like it rambled and he was making it up as he was going along. It had an interesting beginning. It seemed as if he forgot what the original premise was, and then it went on from there. It had a biblical language at the very start, and it seems like he forgot that he had a certain type of language that he was using. The Street, which is the history of a town from the perspective of the street. And my first thought was that he is a writer that absolutely holds your attention. He's very entertaining and strange, uses all the words. Every idea that comes into his mind, it seems, is in these stories. Even though they're so short, he loves the most obscure words, the strangest words, the longest words. But it does feel like everything's being thrown at the wall, every idea, and that they move on very quickly. I have no idea about his process or anything about his life, so maybe these are incredibly worked over stories, but they don't feel that way. And for as memorable as the impression of all of these stories, I've already forgotten the specifics about what exactly was happening. So, very entertaining writer, but a handful of flaws that I think are quite pronounced. My favorite short story that we've read so far is In the Vault. And so we have the story of an undertaker in a little town, and in the middle of the night or late in the day, he's in the room where all the bodies are in their caskets, and basically the door swings shut behind him, and he's all alone. There's no one around, and he gets locked in a room full of the coffins or caskets, and it's a story of this little escape. He has to try to figure out how to get out of the room, and there's a transom above the doorway that he thinks he can kind of break a hole through and shimmy out, but he has to, or he decides to, use the coffins as furniture, or these like stepping pieces. He's going to pile them on top of one another in order to get out of the room. And it's very dark. There's an irony that the man that puts the bodies in the boxes is now himself trapped in a box of sorts, and he's trying to get out. Uh, it was also incredibly comedic. It felt like a very funny premise. Just this man having to, this man getting stuck in a nightmarish situation and having to do things that are hard to do when you would kind of look down upon, like stepping over the caskets and using them as furniture. But he's trying to be resourceful and just get out of this room. But it's very funny. It goes on from there, and it's one of the issues with all the stories that I've read so far, where even if there's a good premise, at least a little nugget that I'm enjoying, it always moves on or goes in a different direction that not only do I not find as entertaining, but doesn't feel like it has a coherence to it. And so he gets out. There's a supernatural element that becomes a part of the story, and it feels like it goes on too long. And there's these really clear parallels that makes me think that H.P. Lovecraft was heavily influenced by Edgar Allan Poe. It seems so on the nose that I'm not really worried about looking it up. And the beginning of In the Vault, just like Edgar Allan Poe, and Edgar Allan Poe has the short story The Cask of Amontillado, or whatever, however you pronounce it. H.P. Lovecraft also has the introductory, I'm going to tell you a supernatural story beginning that is in so many of the Poe short stories. Like, I'm going to tell you this, but you're never going to believe it, and things like that. Unfortunately, H.P. Lovecraft has 3 or 4 beginning opening paragraphs that are on top of one another before the story begins, and so any one of them would have served its purpose, and so it feels a little redundant. And I love the story of the Undertaker stuck in the little room and having to escape, but it kind of stumbles into the beginning and then trips its way to the ending. So there's a lot of flaws for my own tastes. But he's exciting and entertaining, and like I said, he throws everything. It seems like every idea he has just goes onto the page. And the language that he uses, it seems like he's never worried about using that one strange word or having too many of those crazy words in his stories. And it made me think of Edgar Allan Poe again. And I have this very old Barnes & Noble edition of the collected works of Edgar Allan Poe. And I found something that I wanted to... So it's the poem The Bells. I'm going to read the first stanza and then talk a little bit and why I think there's a comparison, but I'm reading it just as an excuse because I love it. The Bells by Edgar Allan Poe. Hear the sledges with the bells, silver bells, what a world of merriment their melody foretells, how they tinkle, tinkle, tinkle in the icy air of night, while the stars that oversprinkle all the heavens seem to twinkle with a crystalline delight, keeping time, 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 in a sort of runic rhyme to the tintintabulation that so musically wells from the bells, 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 from the jingling and the tinkling of the bells. Well, we have footnotes. You can see. So the Barnes & Noble edition has their own critical apparatus, and so we have footnotes in a sort of runic rhyme. And so we have a little star, and it says runic, magical. It's letting us know runic means magical. And then tintintabulation. And we have a little cross, and it says ringing or jingling. So tintintabulation is ringing or jingling. The footnote doesn't end there. So this is the quote from the footnote. Ringling or jingling. Poe used difficult words partly to appear more educated than he was. I read that maybe 20 years ago, and it was just floored. I thought it was so funny. There's no explanation. It's just this little insulting, insulting line, as if the only reason he would use tintabulation is to sound a little bit smarter. Edgar Allan Poe liked to use big words when he could. And I had that same kind of judgmental feeling reading H.P. Lovecraft, where it's so laid on, it's so piled on top of every time there's a bigger, stranger word, he's using it. And I thought of that little note and thought, well, I don't know what's going on with him, and I like that he's doing it. It's just fun. So a little bit of H.P. Lovecraft, one short story that I've enjoyed the most so far in the vault. Let me know if you've been reading, if you've read H.P. Lovecraft. Where's a good beginning point? Where Andrea and I are kind of, I don't want to speak for her, but I think we're kind of picking the short stories at random. I am, at least. And so I have the e-copy of the complete works. If there's anything you think is a good start, please let me know. I know we would both appreciate it. And that's it. Let me know what you think about anything I said. Just leave a comment if you would like, and thank you for watching.